The air still smelled of smoke when Special Agent Daniel Carter stepped out of his black SUV. The burned church cast long shadows over the quiet street. Daniel touched the FBI badge on his belt, a sign of duty, not fear. After 25 years in the Bureau, he'd learned to stay calm. Today, that calm would be tested. A fellow agent came up and said, "Perimeter's secure." Daniel nodded. Good. This is now a federal hate crime scene. But just as his team moved in, a loud voice cut through the air. "Who the hell do you think you are?" Daniel turned to see Officer Kevin Brooks glaring at him. Young, angry, full of swagger. Brooks looked like someone who thought his badge made him untouchable. "Agent Carter, FBI." Daniel said evenly, showing his ID. "This is federal jurisdiction." Brooks sneered. "You're not coming into my city and taking over. Not unless you go through me." Daniel's jaw tightened. "We followed protocol. Your department was notified." Brooks' hand hovered near his gun. "Not good enough." "Step back, officer," Daniel ordered. Brooks' eyes went dark. "No, you step down." In a flash, Brooks pulled his gun and aimed it at Daniel's head. Daniel stayed still, heart steady. Cameras flashed from windows nearby. Witnesses, evidence. Brooks didn't even see he was destroying his own career. "Think about this," Daniel warned. But Brooks shook his head. "In this city, we respect our authority." Daniel knelt, hands raised, but his mind drifted, not to Brooks, but to his daughter Zoe, sitting in a college classroom, unaware of the danger he faced miles away. Brooks called into his radio, "Back up en route." Daniel's mouth twitched. "You're making a bigger mistake than you realize." Brooks smirked. Sure, backup would crush any resistance. What he didn't know was that the man answering the call wasn't just a chief. He was Daniel's childhood friend. Across town, Chief Michael Washington rushed from his office. The call echoed in his ears. Officer as FBI agent at gunpoint. His worst nightmare. On the drive, he called the mayor, the FBI director, trying to stop a disaster before it exploded in the media. When Michael arrived, his heart sank. Brooks, gun raised. Daniel kneeling. Neighbors filming. "Brooks, drop your weapon." Michael shouted, "Chief, I'm securing the scene." "I said drop it." Brooks hesitated, then slowly lowered his gun. Michael rushed over, helping Daniel up. Their eyes met. Old friendship still there after 20 years. "You okay?" Michael asked. Daniel nodded. "Thanks for coming." Brooks frowned, confused that the chief knew this federal agent. "Brooks," Michael said coldly, "you're suspended, pending investigation. Badge and weapon now." Brooks stepped back, angry. "Chief!" They forced their way in. "You pointed a gun at a federal agent." Michael thundered. Brooks glanced around, finally noticing the cameras. His confidence cracked. "This isn't over," Brooks muttered. Daniel and Michael exchanged a look. It was far from over. Later, in Michael's office, the two old friends sat quietly. Memories returned, growing up in the Techwood projects, empty fridges, big dreams. "You kept your promise," Daniel finally said. "You became chief." "And you became FBI," Michael replied, leaning back. "I always knew we'd meet again, just didn't think it'd be like this." Daniel's jaw tightened. "That kid, Brooks, he's a symptom. Something's rotten underneath. You feel it." Michael lowered his eyes. "You're right. Something ugly is growing in this department." Daniel leaned in. "That church fire wasn't random. It's linked to something bigger, something local cops want to hide." Michael stiffened. "Are you saying my officers?" Daniel nodded. "Some of them." "Yes." Michael ran a hand over his face. "If you open this up, it'll be war. The whole department. Everything could burn." Daniel's eyes hardened. "It's already burning, Mike. The only question is, do you stand for justice or help cover it up?" Michael stood by the window, staring out. Two boys once dreamed of fixing a broken system. Now, one enforced federal law. The other led local police. Both had something to lose. Footsteps echoed in the hall outside Michael's office. An officer walked in and dropped a file on his desk. Inside were photos from the burned church and a confidential tip. Michael opened it and froze. Daniel saw his face. "What is it?" Michael didn't speak right away. He turned a page, reading a messy handwritten note. Church wasn't the first target, and it won't be the last. Daniel's voice grew low. "How deep does this go?" Michael's expression turned dark. "Deeper than you think. And it starts inside our own department." Daniel leaned closer. "Then let's finish what we started. Together." Michael's jaw tightened. "Are you ready for the fallout?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "Always." But out in the hallway, a phone buzzed. Someone had already started moving against them. This fight had only begun. That night, Daniel stood by the broken glass of Reverend Williams' kitchen window, reading the threatening note again. The threats were no longer just warnings. They were promises. Michael's grim look said it all. Their enemies weren't backing down. They were doubling down. "They're pushing back hard," Daniel muttered. "They're cornered animals now," Michael replied quietly. "And cornered animals are dangerous." By morning, Daniel had triple security for Reverend Williams and other key witnesses. But every new lead uncovered more corruption. Fake companies, false reports, dirty cops. It wasn't just a few bad apples. It was a whole network built to bleed the community, profit from destruction, and silence anyone who got in the way. Later, in the war room at police headquarters, the newly formed task force gathered. Daniel stood beside a huge map marked with pins for every attack. "We're done waiting," Daniel announced. "We followed the money and tracked the threats, but we haven't stopped the next attack. That changes now." Detective Maria Santos spoke up. "I intercepted some chatter. One of Brooks' closest allies requested a fire crew to be on standby tonight." "Where?" Daniel asked sharply. "Mount Olive Community Center. There's a town hall meeting tonight. Families, kids, the whole neighborhood." Michael slammed his fist on the table. "They're going to burn a building full of people. We need them caught in the act," Daniel said. "This ends tonight." Within hours, hidden FBI cameras were set up around Mount Olive. Plainclothes officers took positions inside, blending in with the crowd. From the surveillance van, Daniel and Michael coordinated every move. As evening fell, the center filled up. Parents, kids, grandparents, all unaware they were being used as bait. Reverend Williams stood at the podium, calm despite the danger. Daniel watched closely from a van, eyes on a blue van pulling into the back lot. Agent Thompson's voice crackled over the radio. Daniel leaned in. 4 men got out, carrying duffel bags, moving quickly to the rear door. "That's them," Santos whispered. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Let them start. We need to catch them lighting the fire." Minutes crawled by like hours. On the screens, the men poured fuel and unpacked makeshift bombs. They placed them near electrical panels to cause the most damage. "Stand by," Daniel ordered, keeping his voice calm even as his heart pounded. Then one man flicked open a lighter. "Go! Go! Go!" Daniel shouted into his radio. The response was immediate. Agents in tactical gear stormed the building, yelling commands. Inside, people screamed as officers got them to safety and cornered the suspects. "FBI, drop your weapons." One suspect tried to run, but Santos tackled him in the alley. Another lifted his gun, but was quickly disarmed and arrested by sharpshooters. By the time the chaos settled, all 4 men were in custody. The bombs were disarmed. No one was hurt. Daniel let out a deep breath, adrenaline rushing through him. They had stopped the attack, caught the men red-handed, and gathered evidence linking them to Brooks' group. Later, back at the command post, Michael dropped a thick file on the table. "These 4 are tied to the fake companies and 3 earlier fires. And now," Daniel added, "we've got them for attempted mass murder, conspiracy, and terrorism." But before anyone could celebrate, Santos walked in, pale-faced. "We have a problem," she said. Daniel felt his stomach drop. "What now?" "We checked their phones," Santos explained. "Someone tipped them off about our surveillance. It came from inside." Michael's hands curled into fists. "There's still a leak in my department." Daniel's expression turned cold. "And whoever it is knows what's coming next." Meanwhile, across town, in a dimly lit office, an older man answered a burner phone. "So they stopped it?" asked a voice on the other end. "Yes," the man replied calmly, watching the news on a small TV. "But it doesn't matter. They think they've won. And the backup plan." He smiled slightly, drumming his fingers on the desk. "It's already in motion." Back at the FBI field office, Daniel stared at the evidence board. Lines and photos linked faces, fake companies, and crime scenes. They were willing to burn a church and a community center. Santos said quietly, "What's next?" Daniel's reply was cold and certain. "They're going after the city itself, outside the safety of federal walls. An enemy prepared for their next move. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning."